Hello and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be a little bit of a different format than I typically do for my dupes videos. It's very bright outside, so hopefully this lighting's okay. But what I did is yesterday I applied all of the dupes all over my face, and I have footage of that I will be inserting throughout the video. And I did a full 8-hour wear test on all of the products so that now that I'm talking them through with you guys, I'm going to talk ingredients and I'm also going to talk how they wore for an 8-hour testing period. I felt like it was a more accurate way to see if a product's really a dupe or not. All right, first up we have the Dior Backstage Face and Body Foundation. I have mine in the shade 4W. They're putting this up against the Lottie London Velvet Skin Foundation, and I have this in the shade Tan. So obviously right off the bat, the packaging of these two products is identical. Both have like a soft plasticky feeling bottle, and then when you open them, there's the actual product in the tube. I have to say I do not like the packaging of either of these because I've owned them for just over 24 hours and they're already super messy. Somehow the product just ends up dripping out even if you have them sitting on your vanity like this. Somehow the product just like wants to come out. So pretty messy packaging on both sides, but equally as messy. So no points taken off on the dupe department. So Backstage retails for $40, whereas the Lottie London one retails for $10. I wanna say this is the biggest price gap difference in all of the products I'm going to be mentioning. Dior has their signature fragrance in here, and the Lottie London one is fragrance free, which I feel like is a bonus point in the Lottie London department. They both have glycerin. The first two ingredients of both formulas is the same. So I really feel like formula wise, packaging wise, these are extremely similar. Now let's talk about how they applied and how they wore. When I first applied, both looked almost identical on the skin. Very thin formula, natural, think like MAC Face and Body, very natural skin-like finishes, easy to blend. I used the same amount on both sides with just a buffing brush. I was really happy with the finish. The Lottie London one, the undertone of that one is not great. It's a lot pinkier for me, and I much prefer the undertone of the Dior. That said, I haven't tried any other shades of the Lottie London one. It could have been a ordering mishap on my side, but usually the shade Tan, you can kind of bank on that being a little bit more of a warm undertone. So that is the only knock I had against Lottie London when I first applied. Now when I wore them throughout the day, both sides looked great, but I will say by the end of the day, I had a little bit more breakup around my nose on the side with Lottie London. On the tip of my nose and on my chin, both sides were pretty much gone because I kiss my kids 1,000 times a day, and so then my makeup always leaves there first. Right around my nose, I could see a buildup of product more on the Lottie London side than the Dior. I also feel like the side with the Dior had a little bit more staying power on the lower part of my cheeks. I felt like I could still see it there more on the Dior side than the Lottie London side. But I am being very nitpicky. This is a long wear test. So overall, they are very similar products, but I wouldn't call it a dupe, I'd call it more of an alternative. All right, next up, we have the Dior Backstage Concealer and the Sephora Best Skin Ever. Packaging of these two has like what appears to be a frosted glass bottle, but it feels more like plastic. This one has a stainless steel top, this one has a matte black top, and then the wand of the Backstage is actually like a little paintbrush, whereas the wand on the Sephora one is more of like your typical doe foot style applicator. So definitely not very similar in the packaging department with these two. The Dior concealer is $29 and the Sephora one is $15, so it's half the price. When you look at ingredients, they both have glycerin. They have a few overlapping ingredients, but really not very similar. The Dior has caffeine, vitamin C, vitamin E, and the Sephora one has hyaluronic acid and algae extract. So both good formulas, just not very similar on paper. Then I applied this one on more of like a liquidy consistency compared to the Sephora. This one felt just a tad bit thicker, but once I blended them out, they looked almost identical. They had the same very natural finish and very full coverage. And then at the very end of the day, when I was looking super up close to my under eye area, I really couldn't tell them apart. So even though the packaging of these two is not the most similar, the ingredient list is not the most similar, I would say this is a better alternative than the Lottie London foundation alternative. And regardless, I am in love with this Sephora concealer, so highly recommend it, even if you're not looking for a dupe for the Dior. But if you are, if you have this and love this, I think this could replace it for you. All right, next up, we have the beloved Huda Beauty baking powder. What's this called? Huda Beauty Easy Bake Loose Setting Powder in the shade Banana Bread. And we are putting this up against the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Banana Powder. So I felt like these two shades were the closest in terms of shade match. Huda retails for $35 and Wet n Wild retails for $6, so very significant price difference here. To apply both of these, I used a different velour sponge from Amazon. I love these because obviously the Huda Beauty one is meant to be used as a baking powder. I didn't pack it on like I would if I was actually baking, but I did try and stay true to the product and the directions on the packaging. But instead of letting it sit for 3 to 5 minutes, I went ahead and dusted it off pretty fast because I didn't want it to be overly cakey. And I did the exact same thing on the Wet n Wild side. They both went on seamlessly. They both made my under eye area look quite airbrushed, but I will say it did kind of accentuate my fine lines under my eyes. I don't typically put on that much powder, but both sides looked the exact same. Packaging of these two is pretty different. Wet n Wild one has your typical loose powder. It's just got some holes in here that the loose powder comes in. It's more on the messy side and it's quite large and bulky. That said, the Huda Beauty one is also quite large and bulky, but I do like that in here. It's more of a mesh style packaging, so not as much product gets released at a time and it's a little bit cleaner. They're both talc-based formulas, but beyond that, the ingredients really don't overlap very much. They're both very basic formulas. After wearing them for a full 8 hours, could not tell the difference on either side of my face. So if you've been eyeing the Huda Beauty, this is the closest actual dupe I feel like we've found yet, because they looked identical when I first applied and they looked identical at the end of the day. And for this price gap, I mean, why not? All right, and then I had a little snafu the first time I was filming this video because I wanted to go in with my Makeup by Mario cream blush on my cheeks, but I had already put on so much powder because I did more of like a baking look. And then when I tried to go in with this on top of the powder, it just was not blending, and that was my bad. So I actually went in with it today to test this dupe today. So this is the only one that didn't get a fair wear test. I will show you the footage today of me applying these two so you can see them side by side. So the Makeup by Mario blush retails for $28 and the Flower Beauty blush retails for $10. Packaging on these two is quite different. The Makeup by Mario has a twist up circle applicator on one side, and then on the other side it actually has a blending brush to go ahead and blend it in. Then the Flower Beauty blush comes with a plastic top. I feel like this packaging doesn't look quite as nice, and it's like a twist up thinner line instead of the circle, meant to make it really easy to just glide it along the top of your cheekbone. So both yesterday when I tried to apply them and today, I felt like they are just very different formulas even upon first application. These two shades are very similar. This is Raspberry Crush versus Soft Coral. So if it's a shade dupe that you're looking for, I feel like this definitely nails it. But if it's a formula dupe you're looking for, I don't think these are super similar. And when I was looking at the ingredients, the one that stood out to me on this one is polyglycerol 3, and that's really known for giving a soft powdery finish to a cream product, and that's exactly how I would describe this. This goes on a much thicker and almost feels like it dries down to more of a powdery finish, and it's a lot more pigmented upon first swipe. Whereas I would describe the Flower Beauty one as very, very emollient, very lightweight, and much more sheer upon application. So I don't even really feel the need to do a wear test between the two of these because I just don't think it's a dupe whatsoever unless you're looking for a color match. In which case you're gonna have to build up the Flower Beauty one quite a bit to get it to the point of the Makeup by Mario one. You're gonna have to layer it on a little bit because this one's just a lot more pigmented. All right, next up is something I'm really excited about. I have heard so much about this mascara. You guys have been asking me about this mascara, and it's the Tower 28 mascara. While I was at Sephora picking up some of these products for this video, I was like, you know what? A lot of people have been asking me about this. I'm curious about it because it's the latest, greatest viral mascara everyone's talking about. So I picked it up and I was planning on just testing it for this video. But then as I was applying it, I was like, you know what? This really reminds me of a mascara that I already have. And so I dug through all my mascaras and I ended up finding an alternative to this one. So this retails for $20. It has a curved wand with like plastic rubbery bristles on it. And the claim for this is that it's really gonna curl your lashes and keep them curled all day long. When I applied this, I was like, what does this remind me of? Something that I already have. And it's this one. This is the Totally Tubular Mascara by Half Caked. It's got very similar purple, light purple packaging. And the applicator on this is also a curved wand with the short rubbery plasticky bristles. So packaging, wand, everything about the two of these is extremely similar. Upon application, the only real difference that I felt or saw was that the Tower 28 one is a tiny bit thicker and wetter than the Half Caked. Half Caked went on a little bit drier and a little bit more feathery. Gave a very, very similar result, and both really did a good job of curling my straight lashes. And in kind of digging through the ingredients on these, what is it about both of these that's curling my lashes so well and keeping them curled all day? Is carnabu wax, if I'm saying that correctly. And it's a vegetable wax that comes from a Brazilian palm tree. and it's the hardest natural wax you can find that really gives body to products. And I really feel like that's why these two products are so similar, is that key ingredient that you don't see in a lot of mascaras. So at the end of the day, both of these products wore really, really well. I didn't have any issues with smudging or flaking with these products. And I will say removal of the half caked one was a lot easier than the removal of the Tower 28 one. The half caked is a tubing mascara. It comes off, it does smear a little bit, but it also comes off in tubes. The Tower 28 comes off a little bit more messily, and it actually made my eyes feel a little bit itchy once I removed it. So very, very similar alternative, if not dupe, we have here. All right, next up is probably the most painful product that I had to buy for this video, and it was the Dior Lip Glow. I don't know why this stung more than all the others. I think it's because I forgot about it, and I had to go back to Sephora and buy this by itself. And you think, okay, I'm just gonna buy like one lipstick. It's not gonna be very expensive. And the total was, with tax, I think $42. And I was just like, oof. But this retails for $38 plus tax. It has sunflower seed oil and vitamin E. And then the L'Oreal retails for $10. This has squalene and vitamin E as well. Packaging on these two is pretty similar. It's got the clear glassy looking packaging, but it is actually plastic. The Dior has this little bulb here at the bottom and then a twist up style applicator. And then the L'Oreal opens like a traditional lipstick with a twist up style applicator. I have the shade, in the Dior, I have the shade 12 Rosewood, and in Glow Paradise, I have the shade Beige Eden. The shades look identical on my lips. I put my L'Oreal on the bottom lip and I put the Dior on the top lip. They both absolutely looked identical. They lasted the same amount of time. They were both gone within a couple of hours. So these are definitely reapply type products. I will say upon application, the Dior feels a lot thicker. It feels like a lip balm, whereas the L'Oreal glides on a little bit more smoothly and feels a lot thinner. Feels like it's melting as you're applying it to your lips, whereas the Dior doesn't feel like it's melting so much, just feels like a lip balm. But the effect of these two is very similar. The ingredients are comparable, but not super similar. But I wouldn't say Dior is much, much better. So definitely another good alternative on our hands with this one, especially for that price difference, $10 versus almost $40. All right, and then last but not least is the Hourglass Diffused Bronze Light. This is Hourglass Ambient Light, and I got the mini version, which was still ridiculously expensive. Full size of this one retails for $56, and then I compared it to the Flower Beauty Heat Wave Luminous Bronzer. The full size of this retails for $9. So big, big price difference here. Actually, I think this is the biggest price difference. When I first applied the Hourglass, it really didn't show up like a bronzer on my skin. It looks very, very natural. Almost looks like it's just applying a little bit of a highlighter. I think I might have gone a little bit too light in the shade that I got because I couldn't tell a big difference. The Flower Beauty, it shows up a little bit more pigmented on me. I have this one in the shade Sunrise. So this one looked more like a bronzer on my skin, but both of them are very natural and you have to build them up to really see much. So it was kind of hard in doing the wear test to see how well they wore because they were hard to see to begin with, but they both looked pretty much the same on both sides of my face. As far as I could tell at the end of the day, they both applied very similarly. They feel very similar to the touch. So I wasn't really blown away by this Hourglass one. I know people love this ambient bronzer, but it just was not impressive to me. I think I'm actually going to be returning this. I would go with the Flower Beauty. It's a little bit more pigmented and it still has that soft sheen that you get from the Hourglass. All right, and that is everything. I hope you guys found this video helpful. Let me know if this style of doing dupes videos is helpful, because I know some people want to know how they last throughout the day, not if they just look similar to begin with. So give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed this style. Don't forget to subscribe while you're here, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.